Hey, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning. How's everybody doing?
Excellent.
Excellent. All right. All right. What have you guys been working on? The mental side, Sean? Yeah? What else? Besides that?
Role playing, presentation. We've gone through a lot of the presentation we've been working on lately.
Okay.
So.
Okay. You know, one of the things that has been interesting to watch, the statement that I said at the Century 21 event when I was on stage, and I said, I'm fascinated by, in so many words, how many people are petrified of the technology that exists in the marketplace. But the reality is the technology isn't anything that we should be fearing. It's our lack of activity that we should really be afraid of. The reality is that people are going to continue to buy or sell, and the medium in which they do that, whether it be selling through or working through the internet, or working through an open house, to working through, whether they find you through a door knock or a phone call, the reality is that the conceptually, real estate is still exactly the same. There's just been mediums in which people have tried to make it more efficient, but in the end, you still have to talk to people. As much as we want it to be point, click, buy, it's just not a reality. The complications of this industry and this business make it to where it's almost next to impossible to not have a human being involved in the process. So that's good news. The bad news is you still have to work. I mean, I look now about nearly 25 years ago when I got into the business, and I sit there and I think, almost nothing has changed. Nothing. I mean, what's changed? Nothing. Technology hasn't changed it. Hasn't changed it at all, actually. It's just made it to where agents get lazy. That's what I've seen. I've seen agents where they're looking for free things to come their way without having to work. I mean, I don't think anybody could show me conclusively. Here's what's even interesting. Do you think commissions have gone down through the last 30 years with all the technology, all the efficiencies? Take the last 30 years and the average of the commissions. Do you know what they are today still? They're over 5%. No different than what they were 30 years ago. So it's fascinating to think about is that nothing's changed. What's changed? We've gone from a book when I first got into the business to now I can see it on a computer. Okay. You don't show homes any different than you did 30 years ago or 50 years ago. Nothing. You still meet them at the house, walk through the house. No, there's some differences. 30, 40 years ago, there probably wasn't as good of a contract that you so easily can put together. I mean, thank the good Lord we don't live in let's see here, Nevada, where you can have any contract from any company at any time. The standardization of what Utah did with their REPC really was a pioneer in the industry. So you have that benefit, but it didn't change anything. It just made it simpler for you. It didn't change anything. I mean, if you work for Century 21, but let's say you work in Nevada, you work for Keller Williams, you literally could have an entirely different contract when you go out and buy a home. I could just present different contracts when I'm buying as an agent, depending on the company and depending on what they do. So you have to be constantly on the watch out to see what that contract looks like because it's not standardized. So I just want you to think about the fact of, if I look at things that have changed, more homes are selling, the population has increased, right? There's more opportunity. Rates are lower, you could say, but they're all still relative to the income that people earn. They're not much different from 30 years ago. The price seems more, but the reality is that it's not really different because people earned less and inflation was different. So again, it's all relative. So I just want you to think about it. The only reason I'm bringing this up is I'm always fascinated how many people come to me in so often in fear-based type of thinking of, well, what about Zillow, or what about Trulia, or what about the conspiracy theories of this and that, and all the different things, the way real estate is sold today. Are we going to be in business? Are we going to have a job? Are we going to be relevant? And that's the thing is that, people in this business, they somehow think that it's going to be something different, and it still will always come down to fundamentally like today's daily message about knowing your job and what you have to do, and that your mindset, your skills, your disciplines, and all the same things that you've worked on for so long or haven't worked on, those are the things. And the challenge with real estate is this, and no one wants to admit this, but they have to talk about this, that you have to work from the inside to the outside. And what the majority of the industry wants to do is show you how from the outside, meaning, I'm just going to put here, give me more leads, as an example from the outside, and whatever the sources are, versus from the inside, which is fundamentally, like earlier this week, I talked about being patient, right? Being persistent, right? Or persevering. Otherwise, I guess I use persevering. Too complicated a word. I don't want to write that down. Right? But persistent, patient, right? Committed. How do you know you're committed?
Come in here every day. Do what you have to be done. So
How do you know you're committed, Taylor?
Me?
How do you know when you're committed?
It's a feeling inside that I'm ready to go. Jason doesn't believe me, but I'm trying to prove it to you.
Yeah, I believe commitment comes down to two things. You know, yesterday I did a little call and there was a quote and stuff that I was reading. In fact, I have it on my phone. Maybe we'll get to it. But just I want you to think about what happens when you're committed. It's two things. One, you are highly disciplined. And number two, you are highly creative. Those are the two signals of whether someone is truly committed. Because when they're disciplined, you know they're committed. But there's going to be stumbling blocks. There's going to be roadblocks. There's going to be things that stop you, prevent you from getting what you want. So the question I would ask you is, if you're committed, you go, oh gosh, I didn't realize it was going to be that hard, so I don't know if I want to do that now. Right? Think of all the people who turn away from the challenge, from the roadblock that comes into their way. The question is, will you find a way to get around it, under it, over it, through it? You will if you're creative. And creativity and discipline show your level of commitment. Those who are uncommitted have no creativity. Those who are uncommitted have low levels of discipline. It's evident. You can see it in business every single day. Committed to a certain level, but only if it's not hard. Committed to a certain level if they can't figure out a way to get it done. And the real challenge of this business is that people want to think, again, that it's something different than the job you have to do. So as just a quick reminder, just as we go through this, just remember, number one is that you need to prospect. This will be a review from even if you've listened to today's message, but prospect and do lead follow-up. The question is, that I always go back to is, if you're supposed to spend 80% of your time doing these things, what else are we trying to do when we know we should be presenting? When we know, number three, we should be negotiating? Number four, we should be getting price reductions, speaking with our buyers and sellers. And number five, I'm not going to write the whole thing out, but working with highly qualified buyers. And that 80% of our time should be spent in these activities. And the problem is that when there isn't a buyer to work with, a price to get reduced, an offer to negotiate, a presentation to give to a buyer or seller, somehow we want a different answer, that it's not spend 6, 8, 10 hours a day prospecting and doing lead follow. But if you work for American Express, that's what you would do. If you were in their call center. If you worked for Delta and the reservations, that's what you would do. If you worked at Discover Card and you were doing collections or customer service, that's what you would do. You don't go to Discover Card and go, well, you know, can I do something else? I really don't like the phone. Don't go work at Discover Card. Right? Don't go work at American Express. Don't go work at Delta. You wouldn't do that because the fact is they would expect you to be on a phone for 6 to 8 hours a day. And then we'll say to ourselves that it's tough, and then my joke always, but it's also probably is true, is I always say, well, what is tough? Like legitimately, like mentally, maybe it's tough, but the problem that each one of us has is that we live our lives based on what we want to do versus what we should do. And I'm not suggesting you can't ever take a step back and go, okay, what do I really want my life to be? That's a different question. Versus, I know I'm supposed to prospect today at 9 a.m. I don't really feel like it. So you don't. Or I don't feel like getting up. I don't feel like doing my job. I don't feel like practicing. I don't feel like role-playing. I don't feel like, you know, going out and knocking doors. It's hot. It's too cold. It's raining. Think about all the things that we say to make it to where we don't do what we're supposed to do. And the reality is that this is our job. The problem is that if we don't prospect and do lead follow-up in major levels, we're never going to get what I want or you want. It'll never happen. You can't. I don't care whether we're talking about recruiting. I don't care whether we're talking about lending. I don't care whether we're talking about you as an agent with a buyer or a seller. What I find fascinating, again, is that I look at, internet leads, and the only way to be effective in them is to do what? So the way you be effective in them, do you have to call them? Do you think our drip campaigns are going to get us enough money? Our email campaigns are going to work? I mean, legitimately supply you a consistent living? In the end, no matter what, it doesn't matter whether it's internet leads, for sale letters, expireds, just listed, just sold, whatever you want, whatever source is important to you, say, okay, I like it. You still have to talk to people. So here's the question. Are you prospecting enough? Are you doing enough lead follow-up? Are you really prospecting, let's just say, a solid 15 hours a week where it is unwavering? You are not looking left, you are not looking right, and you are dialed in. When we look at the schedule of a great agent, and they're trying to, here's a good example. Who's the number one? I meet with him on the phone today. Who's the number 2 agent in the company? Team. Who's the number 2 income earner in the company? Brian Burnett. What is interesting to me, he's already made $587,000 this year. Do you know how many people are on his team? 2. Him, his dad, who sells 15 or 20 homes a year, basically quasi-retired, and an assistant. How much prospecting do you think Brian Burnett does?
Everything.
Pardon?
I would guess it's like an all-day activity.
Do you know who the number 1 listing agent was in the entire company, teams, and everything combined last quarter? You'll see it in the summit coming up. Guess who it is? Be no surprise. Brian. Do you know how many listings he took in the last quarter? Over 30 listings. 30. One guy.
In St. George.
Yeah. I know that he prospects 6 hours a day. But here's what's interesting. People will say, but is he balanced? Is he happy? No, if he's not, he can buy it. I don't know. I mean, does that matter? Does that matter, really? Does it matter if you're happy when you're prospecting? Is that part of the, it's not part of the job description. I only do it when I'm happy. I'm not sure there's many times that he's not happy when he's prospecting.
I'd actually say he enjoys prospecting.
He does.
For him, it's an art. Like, he is amazing at what he does.
Yeah. I agree. Years ago, I remember John Rhodes. Some of you know John. You remember he came to me one day and he said, "You really love prospecting?" And I remember I used to say things like, "I hate prospecting. I don't want to do this. Why am I doing this? I should do something else." And I had this mindset that was not the right one. I remember I changed it to where today now I believe that I love prospecting, and I don't know the difference whether I do or don't. If I tell a young child every day that they're stupid, by the end of their childhood, they'll believe they're stupid, and they'll do everything they can to fix the fact that they believe that they are something that they're not. So the reality is that you can shift whatever you want, however you want it to be. The question is, what do you want? Just going back to Brian, he will spend 6 to 8 hours a day of prospecting. Here's the interesting thing. He works maybe, I'm going to say at maximum 2 evenings in a week. When you're that disciplined, when I was doing business, that is who I was also. I had more trips, more good times, more opportunities. I went more places, messed around, had fun, did more things, bought more things than probably any time of my life. Because all I knew is that if I woke up and I controlled the time from simply 8 a.m., essentially from the business time, right, until about 12 noon, if I controlled that time and I made sure I prospected for 3 hours or set at least 2 appointments, I knew I could win the game. And if I hadn't set the 2 appointments, I don't care if it took me 6 hours, 8 hours, I didn't sit there and look at how many hours. I just made sure the commitment was, no matter what, every single day, I set at least 2 appointments of listings for me specifically. That is the equation. Again, I've put this up there before. Some of you may or may not have seen it, but that is the equation to 100 plus listings and a $500,000 income at minimum a year. You will set 10 appointments, but you will only go on half because of either they don't qualify, they list with someone else, they don't want to hear you now that you even set up the appointment, they change their minds, whatever it may be. So you go on half, and so you attend 2 or 5, and then in the end, I'm even saying, look at these numbers. You attend 5, and essentially 30-something% you take. And just think about that. Let's just do 50 weeks a year. Here's what's interesting, 50 weeks a year. Actually, let's do even less. We'll do 42 weeks a year times 2 equals 84 listings taken. What's interesting is that's not talking about any that's not talking about any buyers. So let's just even assume that you do 24 buyers, which would be, of course, no question it should happen. So now we're at 108 transactions times the average commission in the company is $6,800. What is that? Almost $700,000, give or take. So you're going to make $700,000 plus. And you have one objective, Sean. Set 2 appointments today, and do it for 42 weeks a year. Go on half your appointments when it's all said and done, when the dust settles, and be good enough that you get at least half, or 35 to 40, 50% of them. There was a day I got so efficient, gang, that I was in the 80 percentile of my take ratio. It's crazy what you could do if you got committed.
What do you mean by that, 80%?
Meaning if I went on 10 appointments, I'd take 8. Actually, to be exact, it was 87%. I'd take a listing a day. All right. So, and interesting enough is I did that during the worst times of the economic, crisis of the nation, right? I look at the amount of business that I did then. I sold 115 homes that year.
What year?
2007, or well, 2008. No short sales, no bank owned, everything was crashing. 1 out of every 10 homes would sell. I carried a listing inventory over 50 listings. At one point I had 57 listings. I only share that if I did that same amount of work and effort today, I'd make probably $2 million a year. That's what would happen just in this business. We get so concerned about different dynamics of this business, but this business comes down to just simply doing really one thing twice a day, or at least once a day. Here's the other scenario I always put up here. This is the equation for 50 transactions. 5 set, 3 attended. People say, wait, that's not an exact number compared. I'm like, yeah, but just look, it's mentally I can get my brain around that. Set appointment a day, go on 3, take 1. Do that 42 weeks a year, plus buyers, you'll sell 50 homes, 50 times 6, you'll make $300,000 to $400,000 a year. But the problem is today will you set 1 appointment? Today will you show your commitment, your persistence, and your patience? That's only for you to decide. But in the end, I can promise you that if you will do your job and stop thinking that, here's the other, just finish it. What time is it? Are we done? Not done yet.
No,
Are we done?
Go for it.
How many of you can see people around you failing? They're everywhere. Look, like 20% of people are probably really succeeding, at best. So think about that. Think about how few people are legitimately winning the game. And we will pay attention to all the people who are failing. So one of the things that you could get in the habit of is look at the few that are succeeding. Why can't I point out Brian Burnett? Why can I point out like a Justin Udy? Why can I point out, these are guys that, Justin, even himself, what's crazy, he'll sell 250 plus homes this year. With him, his team, the whole thing. It was only 5 years ago, he was selling 37 homes. And before that, 7 years ago, he was selling 20, 25, at best. At best. So you gotta ask yourself again, what are you really committed to? What are you willing to do? Are you willing to prospect enough that a day never goes by that you don't set at least 1 appointment? Can you let today go by, Taylor, where you don't set 2? Can you? Can you, Jason?
Oh, can I set them? I can't let it go by.
Right. I'm just It's a simple business, and I'm amazed how complicated people make it. Brian Burnett is one of the best examples I've ever seen in the history of my life of all real estate agents, because he gets the fact that when he's making $500,000, guess what he'll do making $500,000 that most agents won't do today? Yeah. So the problem is that we go have one commission check and we go, oh, well, I don't need to work today. I got my one deal, I got to work it. I got to work my deal. He doesn't do that. Doesn't matter if he made $100,000 last week or yesterday or last month. He's averaging $100,000 a month in income. But guess what he still does every day, Sean? Prospects. And in 100-degree weather, he still even goes out and knocks the doors of FSBOs and expireds. 110 degrees, and he still goes out and knocks.
What percentage do you think of his appointments are in the evening or Saturday?
Are in the what?
Evening or Saturday. Like, how often does he work a Saturday, or like?
He will work Saturday mornings till noon. But not every Saturday, but he will. My deal is I used to work every other Saturday till noon. It's amazing what you can do, man. If you're on that phone at 8 a.m. and prospect from 8 to 10, and then I would allow one appointment at 10 a.m. Boom. If I didn't have the appointment, I went out and knocked FSBOs and expireds on Saturdays. How many agents do you think are doing that? None. Many times I tell people to go knock on for sale owners and expireds, and still people don't do it. I remember I met Brian Noel. Brian Noel was earning $117,000 a year. That's the most he'd ever made in real estate. He was working at Coldwell Banker, came here, started calling just 3 people, each one of them, actually within 5, him 3 in their sphere. 8 people a day in their sphere, 5 days a week. He went from 117 to 250 something thousand bucks. I think 256 if I remember the exact number. That was the first year. And then he realized, he goes, I said, look, go, if you won't call, because he wouldn't call, go knock. So he go out and knock expired listings. He never makes less than $500,000 a year now. Ever. And he does it with his sphere and door knocking expireds. That is the essence of his business. That's it. Simple business. Simple. Amazing how complicated we make it. Okay? Any thoughts, comments?
One of my favorite quotes you always just said is freedom equals discipline. The more freedom you want, the more discipline you actually have to have.
Yeah. Discipline equals freedom. Simple deal. Simple, Taylor.
Simple does not equal.
There's some of you in here who should be selling a lot more real estate than you do. I'm just saying. Not as a criticism. A showing of your lack of commitment with your activities. If I was sitting with you one-on-one, I would be asking you this question. What are you doing with your time? What possibly could you be doing? Some of you should be selling nearly 100 homes a year in here, some of you. And I just question, like, what do you do with your time? What do you do all day? I mean, seriously, think about what do you really do? Right? When someone says, do you want to go to lunch? You're like, oh, okay. I'll go. You want a big coffee? Oh, yeah. Let's go down to Citywide. Give me a Diet Coke. It's waste our life. You know? I mean, I take it for what it's worth. I'm nicer today. You might, well, maybe you don't think that. That's possible, right? But, do you know, am I nicer today than I used to be?
I think so, yeah.
Really? I've softened with age? Is that what you're telling me?
Maybe I just got used to it.
You're numb? People used to think I didn't like people when I was working in real estate. Not that I was trying to be rude, but if you were going to get me off track from my goals and my dreams because you wanted to either complain, whine, talk about worthless information that meant nothing. There was a day, guys, where I had 2 stopwatches that I would hang around my neck. Some of you heard this. And if Jason came up to me, I'd go click, and he would say, well, why did you do that? Oh, because you're talking to me and I'm not earning money. And I only want to count the time I'm working where I'm earning money. And I mean, I had one watch was how many hours was I prospecting, and the other watch was income producing activities, and the other watch was for when I was wasting time. And what I would find is I was wasting 3-4 hours a day of just nonsense. Changed my whole paradigm of how I work in a day. So just consider the impact of your time. You're never going to get it back. You can't ever do something different after it's gone. Just really, are you doing daily what you should be doing? Stop having to look good. Stop having to worry about how you feel. Stop worrying about whether you say the right thing every time. If you talk to enough people and make enough mistakes, it won't matter what you say. I for years have said, even if you literally like just fumble everything, like throw up all over them, someone eventually, if you talk to enough people every day, will say, "Man, I really like the smell of that throw up. That is awesome." Yes, come on over. That's what will happen because you talk to enough people. And some of you are beating the crap out of yourself talking to 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 people a day and going, "I just can't figure out why this isn't working for me." Simple. It has nothing to do with you not necessarily even knowing what to say. You don't talk to enough people. Talk to 30, 40, 50 people, or like myself when I first started, 100 people a day, and you won't have a problem. You won't. Even if you don't know what to say, if you talk to 100 people a day, you won't. And always people say, "Well, how long will that happen?" It'll take 6 to 8 hours. I already know that. That's what will happen. If you do it with a dialer, I mean, on a dialer, Sean, how many people do you talk to an hour?
I don't use a dialer.
All right. Who uses a dialer? Anybody? All right.
I used to talk to 30.
I used to talk 23 to 25 people.
That's about what I do.
In an hour? Oh, and you're just dialing. No dialer. Okay. So it's conceivable you could talk to 100 people a day if you actually committed to prospecting 4 to 5 hours a day. It's no different than Discover Card, American Express, Delta, which have major operations here in Utah. It's no different. It's no different. You just don't get paid $8.50 an hour to sit on the phone. Think about how many people give up their life for what you have. In so many words, for $8.50 an hour, plus benefits. For $8.50. And you could get on the phone and earn like $1,000 an hour, but because you don't get on the phone, don't door knock, or you make 1 hour of prospecting, act like you were on the Mayflower coming across like, the pilgrims of difficulty and effort. The fact is that it's an hour of your life that you could actually earn massive amounts of money. So,
and that guy that would do the expires, he would maybe do an expire, then you were saying something like he would go 10 doors out this way, 10 out that way, and then do like 20 doors.
He'll do that like on one of the, I don't know, I can't speak to exactly what Brian does this very minute today, but when we first started, general statement was that it was 5 for sellers and expireds, primarily expireds, and then on one of those doors, and I just said, look, just do the one where you say, man, I think I'd like to knock this neighborhood. Yeah, like you just said. Actually 5 on one side, cross the street, go 10, 5, come back, do 5, so that one door was 21 doors, or that one stop was 21 doors, right? I think it's great, but I'm not going to give you numbers that if you talk to 25 for sellers expireds a day, a week face-to-face, you'll generate 1 listing. Not too long ago, Doug Carey, about 2-3 months ago, I challenged him and said, just do it! Just knock on 5 expired doors a day and do it 25 a week, and after 3 weeks, you'll generate 1 listing a week from it. He started doing it. He started getting listings. Here's the beauty, guess what? He's not doing it anymore. It fascinates me. But he's in the top 10 in the company. I was just looking at his numbers yesterday. Imagine what he could earn. Capable of probably earning $1 million a year. I don't know, but it's hot, right? In the desert, you want to get sun. I don't know. I don't know the reasons why. Usually I can tell you in generalization, it's just we don't feel like doing it. Not a good enough reason. Okay, any thoughts, comments? Here's my challenge to you. Stop negotiating away your dreams. Because every day that you don't prospect, you are literally flushing them down a toilet. The more you will talk to people, the more opportunities you give yourselves, the better. Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Right? Nothing frustrates me more than watching my son in a batter's box, watching him not swing the bat. Strike! Strike! Strike 3, you're out. Because he never even tried to swing the bat. So the question is, are you going to swing the bat, right? Are you going to take the shot? Are you going to prospect enough to where you sit back and go, you know what? I'm committed. I'm doing it. Okay. Any thoughts? Comments? John? Anything?
Good stuff.
For the record, Monday I committed to 30 contacts a week.
A week?
No,
30
a
contacts a
day.
week.
A day this week without working Tuesday. And I took a listing last night, so it worked.
From that prospecting?
Yeah. So I am committed.
Do you see how committed people, how excited they were about your listing?
Yeah, they're like, even you are like, okay.
No, it's cool. But that's the point, right? And the thing is that a listing is much better. I don't know, Lindsay, you have some buyers you work with. How many homes have you now shown them? Taylor, have you heard about this? I mean, how many?
That's awful.
But how many homes do you think you showed?
Each time they were.
No, total. 30? 40?
At least.
Let's not bruise their ego.
I'm just saying.
That's not what it is.
It's not that we don't like buyers, but the thing is, you'll probably have that. Well, here's the average days on market in Salt Lake County is how many? 15. Listings are good, but you can't get them if you don't talk to people.
Just for the record, every time I had to take them out, I would turn to them and say, I hear you working with buyers.
Okay?
They're wasting time.
You need the buyers to help you finance your ability to master getting listings. Take the buyers, but that doesn't excuse you from prospecting and going and getting a listing. Even those of you who are, look, you do a ton of buyers, right? But there should never be a day that goes by that you're not spending at least 1 hour a day trying to take a listing. 1 hour a day. Cody Watts is one of the top agents in this company. He's in the top 5 in the company right now. He was, when I met him, every minute, every day, every second, everything he did was about buyers. And I tried to what I tried to prevent him from doing when we first did when I met him is he went and he heard me speak and he went 100% into listings and said, no more buyers. Crippled him financially for a minute. He realized, wait a second, can I make this transition? And the transition started with one statement I would make to him every day. 1 hour a day, or every coaching session, 1 hour a day of focusing on taking a listing. So even if you're working the buyers, it's great, but you can't tell me you cannot find 1 hour in a day to focus on taking a listing. Whether it be that you go and door knock 3 expireds, whether you go and you call for sale by orders and expireds for an hour, whether you do just listed, just sold for just an hour, spend 1 hour a day focused on taking listings, and the rest of your time, that's fine on the buyer side. But you have to allow yourself the opportunity to go out and take listings. Even if it's just the 1 hour a day. So we're now, I mean, Chris, does he ever work with buyers?
Scott,
Yeah.
he has a buyer.
It's a good balance. He's making more money than he ever has. He's traveling more than he ever has. Is that a fair statement? Having more fun than he ever has. And guess what? You don't do that if your 99% of your life is filled up with buyers. So we have a spade, call a spade, and people get mad when I talk about this, but it's like, come on. Don't try to push people down and shove them down into a hole and hold them down into the ground of only working buyers for years and years. That's nonsense. But you should be spending 1 hour a day working a listing or trying to get a listing. And if you do that, then you'll look back like a Cody Watts several years ago when he looked back and went, wow, you know what? I took like 18 listings this year. And he's transitioning more and more to his more and more control of his life because the listings are what give that to him. He becomes the employer in the market instead of the employee with all the buyers. Okay? All right, let's have a great, finish strong, have a great week, and finish strong. Rock and roll. Here we go. I'm Steve. I like talking to new people. I know it's important to me. I hear people things. I did it when I follow it. I'm passionate about real estate. I know the shit is not ready to go. I like asking questions. I enjoy teaching new myself. My thoughts and my emotions, action goals. My books are my dream daily. My presentations are persuasive. I prove my skills daily. I'm happy. I love the process. He's my business. I see my future is awesome. I love my life. I am grateful for things. I control my thinking. I believe in me. I know I'm standing. I use my way to Where is? Okay. I'm sorry.
Is there a commercial guy?